right, so Jackie has the Drash for us today. Very good. Yay.
Find these scriptures real quick. Okay. First of all, I got to tell you something. We were singing, what was the first song we sang?
Song of Victory.
Yeah, Song of Victory. During that song, the Lord reminded me right where it says, I will stand and see the victory, that I have been able to stand through praise and worship since the first time since May 31st. So praise God. Yes. My drash today is titled The Two Paths. Moses warned the children of Israel against harboring a fatalistic view of Torah. It would be easy for the Israelites to say God's commandments were too hard and burdensome. You'd have to be a perfect person to keep all his commandments. So what's the point in trying? Let's imagine a mother who sends her child to clean her room. I had to think about my sister right there, because her room, if she was in the room, you would not be able to find her. That's how her room was. She was just everything everywhere. The little girl goes into her room and observes that the room is in considerable disarray. She sits on the unmade bed, uncertain on where to begin. She says to herself, even if I do my best to put all the toys away, make my bed, put my dirty clothes in the hamper, and straighten my closet, there will still be other things amiss in this room. What about the cobwebs in the ceiling corners where I can't reach? And the dirty bedclothes that need washing? I have no real hope of being able to properly clean this room. Why should I even try? She then talks herself out of obedience. Moses warns us not to talk ourselves out of obeying God. He insists that the Torah is practical and achievable. A person does not need to be perfect or sinless to keep Torah. God simply wants his people to obey. Deuteronomy 30:19 says, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. So choose life in order that you may live, you and your descendants. Moses set a simple choice before the children of Israel. On the one hand, they could choose to keep God's covenant by obedience to his commandments. Moses called this the way of life and blessing. On the other hand, they could choose to break the covenant by violating the commandments. Moses called this the way of death and curse. He tells them, choose life in order that you may live. The first words of the Didache, which is a manual of instruction to the early believers, begins with a direct allusion to this passage of Deuteronomy. The Didache opens with these words, there are two ways, one of life, one of death, but a great difference between the two ways. Didache 1:1. The Didache also goes on to explain the difference. The way of life is described as a life of godliness. The description incorporates the teachings of Yeshua and the commandments of the Torah. At times, it seems like it's drawing material from the Sermon on the Mount and on the other teachings of Yeshua. At other times, it offers commandments and principles derived from the Torah. At the conclusion of the Way of Life section, the Didache sums up the way of life by prescribing obedience to all the commandments, confessing sin for failings, and asking God for forgiveness. I'd like to read from the Didache, chapter 4, just verses 13 and 14. Do not forsake the commandments of the Lord, but keep what you have received, neither adding to nor subtracting from it. Confess your transgressions in the assembly, and you will not draw near in prayer with a guilty conscience. This is the way of life. The Didache then describes the way of death as a path of wickedness. That's Didache 5:1 and 2. And it's here somewhere. But this is the way of death, which is first of all evil and full of curses: murder, adultery, lust, sexual immorality, theft, idolatry, magic, use of potions, robbery, false witness, hypocrisy, duplicity, deceit, arrogance, malice, greed, foul speech, jealousy, overconfidence, loftiness, and pretension. It is the way of those who persecute good, those who hate truth, those who love falsehood, those who are ignorant of the wages of righteousness, those who do not cling to what is good or to righteous judgment, those who keep watch not for good but for wickedness, those who are far from being considerate and persevering, those who love frivolous things, those who seek repayment, those who are merciless to the poor, those who do not trouble themselves for the oppressed, those who do not recognize the one who made them, those who murder children, those who corrupt what God has formed, those to turn away from the needy, those who oppress the greatly distressed, those who are advocates of the wealthy, and those who are lawless judges of the poor, those who are utterly sinful. Children, you may be rescued from all of these. Moses instructed Israel to choose the way of life so that they might have life. Moses went on to define what he meant by life in Deuteronomy 30:20. It tells us to choose life by loving God, obeying his voice, and holding fast to him. For this is the life and the length of your days. In Hebrew, the pronoun for this and the pronoun for he are identical. Deuteronomy 30:20 could literally be read to say that he is our life and the length of our days. Yeshua teaches us likewise. He teaches us to love God and obey his voice. He says, "He who has my commandments and keeps them is the one who loves me, and he who loves me will be loved by my Father." John 14:20. Therefore, to choose Yeshua is to choose life. As he said, "I came that you may have life and have it abundantly." John 10:10. He is our life and the length of our days. Shabbat Shalom.